Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone out there. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Secrets in Medical Device Sales.
Hello, 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 everybody. Yes, we are excited to have everybody listening. And today we are discussing a topic where we've had people write in to us. And so ultimately, we've had a few separate requests or emails about success. And we really focus on how do you make yourself better every day? What does it really look like to be successful? And so it really sparked an interesting conversation between Lisa and me because I love that. It makes us think, right, Lise? Like,
Yeah.
did this not make you say, wow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we talk about all sorts of things. And every time you and I talk about things, then it like sparks a little thought in my head. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I do that. But you don't really think about it because this thing that we're talking about today is such a simple thing to do. But yet, I think sometimes we either forget to do it or we get so caught up in our thought process of, I can't seem to get this doctor to reply to me. I've emailed and I've text messaged and I've tried to get in touch with them and they just don't return my phone calls or emails or text messages. Or you're trying to get in front of the person at purchasing and you email them because you don't want to disturb them, whoever it is, but you need to be successful in these sales calls. The biggest thing is super simple. And Cindy, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's time for you to just
Well,
go ahead and reveal that.
well, before you do that, I just want to expand a little bit because I think you're right. Everything that you said, I am sure everybody out there has felt like that. Like they've had that moment of not being stuck or I want to go forward. But then you stop, and on the flip side, you see those people that day after day or year after year after year, they make it happen.
Yeah.
So, what is that common denominator? What makes them successful? Why are they successful? Well, that brings us to revealing our secret for today, which you said it, and I agree. It is very, very simple. The secret to continual success is, I wish I could do a drum roll. Can you do a drum roll? I can't. You can say. The secret is showing up. I said it. It's that simple. And actually, Woody Allen talked about, he's been quoted saying that 80% of success is showing up. And it's really true. I mean, if you think about that, if your presence, just your presence is 80% of success, then that presence plays a role in an effective sales meeting by showing up. But actually, I think we're just going to take some time to break down how you can show up in two ways. Because number one, right? Wouldn't it be physically being present?
Yeah, absolutely. Showing up is physically, you're driving to the hospital, you're driving to the OR, you're driving to the outpatient lab, you're driving to the office, you're going there with a purpose in mind. And we're going to talk about this and being strategic in showing up, but you're going there to meet with the physicians. And just your sheer presence alone does so many things. First of all, you're in front of them. They see you physically. So they're like, oh, hey, Lisa, I haven't seen you, in a couple weeks, or gosh, I feel like it was just yesterday we did that case, or hey, what's going on? What's new? And some of the things in our other episodes that we talk about, like the elevator pitch or cold calling, all of those questions we answer. But just your sheer presence reminds the physician who you are, the product that you sell. And if they don't know the product that you sell, now you're going to go talk to them about it. But it's just a fact that you're there. And I mean, it's so funny. It's just so simple. But I will admit, Cindy, that a lot of times I will find myself, in years past where I get really frustrated. I either haven't had cases, I've been slow. Slow is like the dreaded 4-letter word. I mean, it's just awful. And you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And you just start spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels. The easiest thing, you guys, is just to go to the hospital. Just show up at the hospital, strategically have a plan there, but go get a cup of coffee. Go sit at the coffee place or outside the doctor's lounge, or go to the OR. Make sure if your product's on the shelf, they're stocked. I mean, have a reason to be there. And then you have that agenda behind you, but just getting your physical body out of your house or your office or your car, whatever it is, that in and of itself will propel you towards that success. And it sounds so simple, Cindy, but sometimes it's like, duh.
And you know what the old saying is? Out of sight, out of mind.
100%.
And honest,
100%.
yeah. I mean,
yes.
Sales, you want to be in sight, you want to be top of mind.
Yes.
And is it so easy to sit back and be like, well, I don't have an appointment and they didn't respond to my email, so I'm not going to do that. Well, how many times has it been like you go there and you're surprised with like, wow, what did I just learn today?
Oh my
With,
gosh,
you know,
absolutely. You're literally saying everything. First of all, when you see them, you kind of are like, hey, I haven't seen you in a couple weeks or a month, or we haven't done a case in 2 months, 3 months. They're like, really? So doctors are really busy. They have their patients, they have their surgeries, they have their office, then they have their family at home. So they are constantly, or they're writing papers, they're constantly doing things. To them, 3 months may be 3 days. They're not really connecting, nor are they checking off in their little checklist of things to do. Oh, I haven't worked with so and so in a while. That's not what they do. So it is your job as the sales rep to be back in front of them, reminding them, making sure things are, number one, are they good? Have you had good patient outcomes? Number two, is there some clinical paper you can talk to them about? Number three, any cases coming up? And you just being there allows it to like ding, ding, ding in their mind. And they're like, oh, hey, Lisa, guess what? I think I have a case coming up for you. Hit up Sarah in my scheduling office and she'll tell you the patient name and you can get the information and get the date of surgery. So just by surely being there, you are reminding them that who you are, what you sell, and you haven't seen them in a while and you want to work with them again.
And to take that a step further, I like what you just said because you talk about that gap of time, right? Where like they say, oh, it's been 3 months. So honestly, as part of being sales reps, when you take ownership of your business and become that CEO of your own job and your career path and your entire territory, ultimately, you are responsible for the timeline. You are responsible to make sure that 3 months doesn't seem like a week ago. Every week
Right.
should seem like a week.
Right.
And think about it. If you don't show up one week,
Yeah.
you'll be missed.
Yeah.
So to present yourself to be that person that notices when you're gone out of sight as much as notice when you're on top of mind in sight. And that is part of building that relationship and being that important because showing up, oh my gosh, it's so important. I mean, 80%, I might even make it like 84%. It's so important.
It is. And you also mentioned something else by surely just showing up. I keep saying that word. I don't know why.
Surely showing.
You might learn something that you would have never honestly otherwise known. Maybe one of the partners just left. Maybe they have switched their healthcare systems. Maybe they just had a big buyout. Maybe the patient mix has changed. Maybe they learned a new procedure. Like there's so many things that an email or a text message, you're not going to get that information. That is a face-to-face conversation that you need to have with your physician. And the only way you're going to do that is by showing up at the hospital or their office and talking to them and asking them those questions that they then share the information. And that in and of itself is a small success because from there you build, right? If there is an issue and you guys haven't done a case in a while, now you may uncover why. And you wouldn't have figured that out if you had emailed or text message. You only figured it out by showing up.
100%. And there was something you said that just triggered a memory from when I worked at a company a while back. And I remember looking at the trends going down and they had just emailed me about something. And I was like, I feel like we're having a conversation. What is going on behind the scenes? And I had to go in there for something else. So I went down the hallway to go speak to them and just, hey, where are you guys? How are you doing? Just a simple conversation. And she went over and she shut the door and sat down with me and was like, this is awful. Like we have lost TRICARE insurance patients because they did a lot of, that's the military insurance, if you're not familiar with that. And this particular hospital had a big feed of their patients. Their ER numbers drastically declined. They had a meeting with the administration. And it's like all of a sudden, then you're sitting there and you're becoming her sounding board and supporting her. But then understanding, I never would have known this. And it wasn't something she would blast it in an email. So all I did by showing up was prevent assuming something was wrong and going down the wrong path. I clearly knew where I was. It was probably one of the best, weird, but it's like being a detective. You don't know until you see something.
Yeah. And we tend to really, as sales reps, boy, do we assume. We completely go down that path so quick. It's like, oh, well, I must have said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing. The case didn't go well. They don't like my product, my competitor. It's literally like, we're our own worst enemy. And it's so true that it really helps kind of stop you in your tracks, as well as you're gaining this information. And then, like I just said, and you said, then you gain knowledge and from there you build. And I think that kind of leads into the next thing that you and I really talked about is not just showing up physically, getting your body inside the hospital or the OR or the office, but showing up effectively. Right. And I kind of hinted to that But one of the things that I always try and do, Cindy, is I make a list of the doctors at that hospital and what do I need to accomplish with them? Is it picking up a case? Okay, great. Is it finding out more information? Are they attending a meeting coming up and I need to secure a meeting with my VP? Maybe we need to discuss inventory. Maybe we need to discuss if they had a great patient outcome or we're writing a paper together. But whatever it is, you need to have that planned prior to driving in. Well, you can do it while you're driving, but prior to walking into the hospital. And you need to have that kind of plan of action ready to go so that when you see those doctors, whether it's at the coffee shop, walking down the hall to the OR, whatever it is, boom, you've got it. You're on point, no distractions. You know what your agenda is, and you talk to them about it. And that in and of itself is another sales success when you're able to hit that.
It is unbelievable. I remember when I first started in sales and we had to write out a pre-call plan. And to me, I remember thinking this is like busy work. But I will tell you, over the course of years, instead of writing it out in this algorithm that I had to when I was first learning sales, that little exercise was a good exercise because then you mentally do it so quick and you're like, this is my point. Who do I need to see? And then I always pre-call plan thinking, what will the objection be? Because you got to prepare.
I like that. I like that.
You're ready going in because it's not on your agenda.
I like
the
that.
conversation. It's two ways. So anticipate. This may be where they object. And then now, like Lisa said, the second part of showing up is really being effective. But this kind of falls into a subcategory of how you execute effectively. What do I mean? I mean, you're showing up physically. Okay, hopefully you've showered, you don't smell, you look clean. You're wearing the appropriate whatever you're supposed to wear. Yeah. Got that. That's quite simple. But then how do you show up in your conversation? So I'm just going to take a quick example of when that lady shut the door and then suddenly right now this conversation is going to be confidential.
Private.
So then I become empathetic. So now I'm going to sit and listen. And this is how I'm showing up for her as her customer. I am now empathetic because this is what she needs. Now, I'm sure there's other examples of different ways that you show up. All right, Lisa, give us an example of a different way of showing up.
Well, if you're catching them on walking into the OR, you're going to walk with them. Number one, you don't make them stop and talk to you. You always walk with the doctor. Or if they're grabbing a cup of coffee, grab the cup of coffee with them. Do you have 5 minutes to sit down and chat? Or if they're grabbing coffee on the way to their office or to go make rounds, hey, do you mind if I walk with you and we chat about a couple things real quickly? You make your time fit around their schedule. And with what you're saying, you read the room. I mean, it's all about making sure that whatever the situation is, that you're appropriately reacting to it. You did a great job of that with the private conversation. I'll find my guys anywhere. I mean, they may be coming out of an OR, and sometimes that may not be the best time to talk to them right after they finish a case because they're thinking about the way the case went, but then they're also thinking about ahead of things, So maybe what you can do instead is you're at the hospital, you're there physically, now send them a text message. Hey, Dr. So-and-so, do you have 5 minutes to chat? Can we review inventory? Can we talk about what you and I discussed? I'm here, can meet you anywhere. I'll do that a lot because I know if they're in between cases, they've probably got a couple hours, with room turnover and all the other things. They're going to go talk to the family. They're going to go make rounds. They're probably going to look at some films, but they're going to have a little bit of downtime. So all I do is say, hey, I'm here. And hey, you better be ready to be there all day. They may say, I don't have time for you now, but can you meet after my next case? Your answer has to be yes. You've got to plan that. You can't just show up. And I think this is actually really important. When you show up, you need to show up fully and completely for the entire day. It isn't going to the hospital because you're going to give it 30 minutes and then, or an hour or 2 hours. And you're like, oh, I didn't see anybody. No, it's your job to sit there all day long and connect with as many people as you can. And you know what? Sit there and do some work while you're at it. But don't just show up and in 30 minutes or an hour in and then have a time limit. Unless you've got a case that's bogging you down that you need to go show up for. But if you're there to specifically try and meet with physicians, you better have the full day blocked out.
I love that. That was so huge, like showing up committed.
Yeah.
You got to be committed. The other thing is you can communicate. You said something I think is important too. Let's say it's like a clinic day, okay? And the doctor sees patients in between and you're just going to wait, whether it's in the waiting room, they have a lounge or whatever. Bring your work, but you give them the window of time. I'm here to meet with you. I can wait in the cafeteria. I do have to leave by 1. I have another case. Like you're allowed to know that you are busy too, but
Yeah.
giving them a window. And if sometimes they'll text you, I see that, oh, wait, I got pulled away. I know you have to go. I'm so sorry. Can I meet you another time? I've done that. One of my doctors is a very busy clinic day, but it was great. It's a great time to get done work. And that's the other bonus is sometimes if you're in the cafeteria with an intention to be there for somebody else, you may run into somebody else you need to see or check on inventory. And you never know, again, by showing up in the hospital, what else that will lead to. That makes us successful because it's all momentum and it's
Yeah.
all being there and keeping everything going. And it gets more fun. You're more valuable. And it makes such a difference. It's so simple. Like
It's so
it's
simple.
silly.
I know. I know. Another thing I think is that when they see you, they're like, oh, hey, thanks for coming. You know, I mean, we're all in this together. I think just sometimes just the simple act of them seeing you there, you're doing inventory. And I'll tell you every now and then when I'm at an account, they'll be like, who you working with? What you got going on today?
Oh,
You know?
yes.
So then they're like, I got a case for you, you know? So, I mean, you never know how
That
it's
is
going
so
to
true.
play out. But I think what you and I are talking about is so important. Number one, it's so simple. But number two, as long as you're prepared and you're ready for those conversations, you have a plan of action, you know what topics you need to hit with those doctors to get to where you need to go to next, whatever that is. And then you're available. You make yourself fully and intentionally available for them when they can meet. And again, if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you don't have a case you're running to, well, then you're going to be sitting there till 5 o'clock in the afternoon because that's why you went there in the first place. You know, that was your first priority.
That is such a great way to wrap it all up. I mean, it is so simple. And that's the fun part about this is when Lisa and I sit here and think somebody's reaching out, how do I get there? Sometimes it's taking a step back and looking at things that we literally overlook.
Yeah.
And showing up is one of those things. It's that simple. When you physically show up and then effectively show up like we just described, that continues to show the support for your physician. And when they feel supported, they learn to trust you. And when they trust you, you become partners in their business. And that is the equation for a successful sales rep. And we want all of you to get on that path. And we were very excited to just take this time out and share our simple secret today
Simple,
about
simple.
showing up. I love that. Simple, simple.